I would say I'm surprised, but that would honestly be a lie at this point. Once again, the Destiny 2 community is up to some mischief, and I think it actually has some interesting implications for where we are as a community. For those new to the channel, we do a lot of social commentary, we do a lot of guides, we do a lot of things to help the community think about our actions, think about the work that we do, and hopefully be kinder and better to one another. So, that's my whole goal here is to, again, as my motto says, game, learn, and then grow. The issue on that pathway that I'm actually struggling with today is the recent Gulron, aka the Sorrow Barrel cheese that has been going on in the Duality dungeon on Master Mode. For those who are not familiar about what the situation is, the TLDR is that there was a cheese that used to be available in the game that you would be able to load up into Master Duality and get to the second encounter and cheese the boss into falling off the cliff. You would complete the encounter, no damage having to be done to the boss, and then get the free loot. The incentive being that the free loot in Master Duality is, or just the loot in general is, Artifice Armor. Artifice Armor coming with an additional slot in your armor piece that allows you more customization and more ability to actually have really deep, innovative build crafting to your character because you now have more options than other people who just grind the rest of the game that don't have Artifice Armor. Get it? Got it? Good. It's pretty straightforward. You cheese the boss, he falls off a cliff, you complete the encounter, you get loot. What's wrong with that? Well, beyond some of the commentary that I've already said about why I don't really condone cheesing and don't really do cheesing, have I done cheesing? Like, I'm not going to be hypocritical. Yes, I do it every once in a blue moon, but it's not an active part of my Destiny 2 experience. But what has been really bothering me about this cheese that, again, is now patched at this point, it was available for, I think, like half a day or the majority of a day. Bungie shut down the method that people were using to be able to get this cheese. I think it's still available solo technically, but again, I'm not advocating for people to go do it or find those things. This was egregious enough that Bungie's going to put in a full patch for the cheese soon. But again, that's not the point. The point being that this is coming on the heels of very much controversial, not only launch to the Lightfall DLC, but more recently, a very, very divisive, polarizing, whatever word you want to use, conversation that's been happening in the community about the Root of Nightmares raid and how easy it was, allegedly, for some folks, particular hardcore players in the community, to be able to complete it, especially on contest mode. Now, again, I've talked about contest mode. I'm not going to rehash that here. I'm just going to get to the cheese part of this conversation because the cheese for Galron, is it harming anybody? No, not really. Is it like cursing someone out or like saying something negative in a fire team chat? No. But what it does do is highlight to me some very, very clear hypocrisy that's going on in the community. In light of these massive conversations that people were having, talking about some of the top creators like Saul Greppa and Data, and talking about their placement inside of the contest mode Rude Nightmares raid race. In light of all the discussions about, oh, well, the mechanics were really too easy and there were a 101 raid, and this was an even easier raid than Deepstone Crypt Day 1, all of these conversations are happening. Again, regardless of where you landed on the spectrum, again, I'm not here to hash that out with you, but what I am here to say is I think that this actually says a lot about the lack of integrity that this community has when it's talking about the issues that it has with the game. Well, what do you mean? Well, what I mean right now is if I were Bungie and I'm getting feedback from the community in all these different ways, and I'm seeing the feedback loop around Rooted Nightmares. I'm seeing people talk about that they wish the bosses had more health, that they wish the mechanics were a little bit more detailed, a little bit more stringent, so that you actually had more of a challenge. All these different things. The day that's happening, I'm taking that into consideration. If I was Bungie, I'm taking that into consideration. I'm thinking about those pieces. I'm figuring out how do we incorporate that feedback into the next raid. Only a couple days later to find out that now people are cheesing in-game content because Rooted Nightmares is a raid, it's in-game content, and now Master Duality being unlocked for the weekly reset is now being cheesed. People are avoiding the same difficulty that they were just asking for. People are avoiding the mechanics that they were just complaining that they weren't getting in other in-game activities. People are electing to not engage in the game intentionally not engage in the game in a way that Bungie has set it up to be. And if I were Bungie, I would look at those two pieces of data and be very confused as to what the community actually wanted out of their Destiny 2 experience. It actually makes a lot of sense, the reason why we actually got the Lightfall campaign piecemealed in the way that it did in terms of the narrative, as well as all the other components that folks had a lot of feedback on. It's because how do you win in that situation? Again, this is not a pro Bungie stance. I have a lot of critiques of Bungie. If you actually watch the channel and actually listen to my videos, I have a lot of critiques of Bungie. This is not a pro Bungie video, but what this is a perspective video about what does that actually look like. It looks like you have your hand in the cookie jar and the lights cut on and we can see that you have your hand in the cookie jar. And now folks want to play coy like they don't have their hand in a cookie jar. To me, that's a little absurd. That's a little dishonest. That's a little hypocritical, is it not? To be in a mindset where you want to critique the developers, you want to critique the people who are putting out the content about mechanics, about the difficulty of the content that they're putting in the game. But then you see this mad dash. And again, the videos are still up for the creators, so you can easily see how people were just fire sale language. So much just urgency. Oh my God, do this today. This is broken. All these different things where people were actively, top creators in this community were actively advocating for people to cheese the game. Again, because I can already hear someone in the comment section talking about, well, you acting like this is the first cheese ever. No, I'm not. I'm not sitting here acting like this is the first cheese ever. What I am saying is that this particular cheese, the way that people are approaching it and the way that people were positioning it as like a new light friendly cheese when it's a master level content, when it's in-game level content, and we're seeing people talk about, oh yeah, I'm taking new lights in LFGs and other content spaces. People are talking about, I'm taking new lights in to get artifice armor. Think about that. People were actively not from trying to be inaccessible, like new lights can't do this, but this is in-game material, and because you could cheese a boss within 12 to 20 seconds, get high tier armor without any real effort that was intended behind the mechanics and the difficulty level of those encounters, yes, it's very wild. Ultimately, Bungie came out with partial patch, if you want to call it that, but essentially one of the core, again, as you see, I'm not saying explicitly what to do because I'm not advocating for the cheese, but Bungie did plug one of the holes that was pretty key to people being able to do it so fast. And because of that, in the short term, there is a higher bar to be able to do the cheese. Again, there are some folks who are still finding elongated ways to be able to get to that same cheese, but again, it's now not taking 15-20 seconds to do, and you're not seeing the LFGs for folks to farm it as much anymore. Again, Bungie's more than likely going to come out with a full patch, but even I'm not naive enough to think that there's not going to be the next type of in-game content cheese that people are going to be looking for. This is really not a bash to any particular group. It's a call out, or really a call into the community, because for me, I actually want the final shape to be good. I want the end of this light and dark saga to mean something. I want the conclusion of whatever this is, whether we get Destiny 3 or not, whatever is going to be the next step that literally no one who's not at Bungie knows about what the next step is. I want the conclusion of the story that we know about, which is the remainder of Lightfall and then the remainder of the final shape. I want it to be good, and I feel like the more that the community engages in these ways to say, like, hey, we're going to sit here and complain about difficulty, we're going to complain about the narrative, we're going to complain about all these, we're going to complain about Nimbus, even though people haven't done all the things that talk about the fullness of his character. We're going to complain about all these things without doing our research. We're going to complain about all these things while cheesing mechanics or avoiding mechanics, really, that are crucial to the game, and then turn around and trash talk Bungie. I am personally sick and tired of sitting here having these same conversations when I can say for myself that I'm actually truly invested in the community getting better, both as like people not being toxic to one another in the community, but also things like this. I want all of those aspects, a very clear difficulty scale that engages everybody, whether you're a hardcore player or whether you're a new light. The ability to have mechanics that are engaging, not just for the first day or first week a piece of content is out, but for the longevity of it just being in the game. The fact that, and you know, I'm going on record here, the Riven encounter is not that bad. It's actually a fairly fun boss fight. But because of the nature of the community and the inherent toxicity that people just don't want to do legit Riven and haven't done legit Riven for the majority of clears in what, 3+ years at this point, it just begs the question to me, what do we actually want? Because I want us to be able to differ where we differ and have different discussions and be able to engage with each other in good dialogue. But if the bottom line is that folks aren't even going to come honestly to the table and have honest conversations and engage in the game in the way that it's meant to be played, the game is not meant to be completed in 1 week. Why are you trying to find all these cheese strategies? New seasons are 3 months. They are not meant to be completed in 24 hours. They weren't meant to be completed in the first weekly reset. But currently, folks just have this expectation around speed and burning through content. And then once they've burned through content, let's blame Bungie for not having engaging content. When the reality is, Bungie and other developers and other game companies, when they have their timeline, they're creating for a very specific timeline. If Bungie wanted to make a 1-week game, a game that literally only took 1 week to complete, they would do it. It will probably cost them a lot less money. They probably have a grand old time saving all the hundreds of thousands of however much money it would cost to only put enough content in the game to last people 1 week. I'm pretty sure they actually would love that. It's a lot less work for them, and you know, in terms of moderation and all the other things, not as much hassle. But that's not the world we live in. The world we live in is that we have a seasonal model. We have content that's supposed to last us 3 months, a whole timeline. We don't start off week 1 with Grandmasters. We build up to that. We don't start off with the season finale. We build up to that. All of this content, whether we like the way it's given to us or not, has a timeline, has a reason, has a pacing, has its own framework for how it's supposed to go out to the community. If we as a community are going to be honest in our feedback, if we're going to be direct in our feedback, if we're going to actually give quality feedback, again, feedback is also something else I've talked about on this channel, then for me, I just don't see how we're going to continue to engage in what I see as hypocritical engagement with the game, where people want to complain about difficulty and mechanics, but also actually aren't going to use the difficulty and mechanics that are built into the game. Ultimately, play how you want to play. You know, it's your console, it's your PC, it's your game, it's your life, whatever. And I've said that many times before. I'm not here to police people. I'm here to ask questions and push people to think about what the result of their actions are. And the result of the actions in this scenario for me, that yes, there are some core things about the game that Bungie needs to fix. Absolutely flat out. Why is it that I went into Legend Vexcalibur Exotic Quest and was getting wrecked and I was only 20 light levels under? But earlier in the season when I was 49, again, the video is up on my page, 49 levels under, it wasn't a walk in the park, but it was like, oh, there's challenge here. The feeling that being 20 light levels under when my guardian is stronger was more difficult than when I was almost 50 light levels under, that doesn't feel like appropriate scaling. There's probably things that Bungie can do to enhance that, to make that better, to make that a more clear, defined experience. But how is Bungie supposed to trust what we're offering in terms of feedback when people are choosing to not engage with the game in the way that we're getting content? In the way that it's meant to be played over the course of a 3-month season, another 3-month season, another 3-month season, and then a new DLC. If you took part of the Go Around Cheese, I'm not here to bash you. If you've taken part of previous cheeses, I'm not here to bash you. What I am saying is keep the energy consistent. Either you're going to have a critique of the difficulty level and the mechanics and the other aspects of the game that you'd like to see changed and provide feedback points and get your community members involved and pushing Bungie to be better, or you can just kind of exist in this realm where, yeah, it's kind of hypocritical. That's your decision. I don't have an impact on it other than me and my voice and the content that I'm putting out here. But my hope will always be is that us as a community can do more to come together to have a very clear, united voice that we can offer feedback to Bungie to make the game better, versus Bungie as a company looking at its consumer base, looking at its community, and seeing that they want to be all up in arms about Root of Nightmares contest mode, in-game activity, supposed to be very difficult. Allegedly, some people think it's easy. And then literally, a matter of days later, turn around and find people cheesing other in-game content that is built in a certain way to be difficult and be challenging, and just not take it seriously. That's all I have for now. But yeah, I think the go-around cheese says a lot. And I feel like there are a lot of questions we have to wrestle with as a community. Whether we actually come together or not, I'm not in control of. But it's always going to be my hope that this community does and is better to one another so that we can actually have a great gaming experience for everyone. That's all I got for now. Peace.